Hello, if you're currently watching this video, you're probably either in year 12, just going into year 13, or you have just finished GCSEs and you're making a decision about whether you want to take RS A-level. So I do want to preface this by saying that video is going to be centered around the OCR specification only. If you do not know which specification your school is doing, you can either contact the school by email or just ask your teacher. I will just do like a short brief kind of overview of the A-level. So if you have done any humanities at GCSE, especially English or religious studies or history or geography, anything like that, and you enjoy essay writing, debates, and you do enjoy big questions, philosophy, ethics, and religion, you have like an interest for religion, I would highly recommend that you do take the A-level. But I would say that if you are not so keen on essays and writing, maybe reconsider. I did actually get my A-level results just yesterday, so quite recently. I was predicted a B for UCAS. That was my predicted grades. I was consistently getting C's throughout year 12, so at AS level my AS grade was a C, predicted B, and I opened my results yesterday and lo and behold I got an A. Each exam is 2 hours. You'll be given 4 questions and you pick 3 questions. Now those questions are all 40 marks each, so the paper averages to 120 marks altogether. Okay, so it's very important to consider the assessment objectives. If you don't know what this means, it's essentially just how you get graded. When they get the mark scheme, they'll be marking you on the assessment objectives. So in religious studies, you've got AO1, which is content and anything you learn in class, like information and just things. So say, for example, the attributes of God, that is content, that's AO1, and that is 40% of your overall grade and your overall mark. So that's very important to consider. At GCSE, it was very, very content heavy, but at A-level that drastically changes. And I think one of the main mistakes that people make is they just write in their GCSE style, which is not really what the examiner is looking for. So then this 60% is AO2. So it's very like there's only 2 AO assessment objectives, so it's much easier than other subjects. So AO2 is evaluation and analysis. Now this is quite a vague kind of assessment objective, and it takes a lot of people to kind of intertwine the two, because of course there should be more evaluation, but you've learned all this content and you've spent all this time learning this content and revising and remembering it, and then you're getting into the exam and you're not able to just blurt all the content you've learned, so that is difficult. But what I would say is be argumentative. Every paper I got into, I would write in giant letters at the top AO2, because it's really important to remember that whenever you're adding content, you need to be evaluative. Okay, what are the Can's 3 propositions? You can tell I'm forgetting. What are Can's 3 propositions? You can write it down. It doesn't matter, because if you're not telling me why this is relevant to the question, and if you're not saying if you think it's good, if you think it's bad, usually there's no like clear-cut, defined, easy way to go. If you have no opinion, you need to make one up. But what I would say is that you need to weigh out how much you have to say for each kind of counter or pro argument, because your argument needs to be extremely strong in able to get those high grades. So link back to question, link back to wording. Now you will probably hear this phrase quite a lot, line of argument. So my teacher drilled this into us all the time, and it was like you need to have a clear line of argument. So you need to answer the question in the first sentence that you write your essay. So say the question is, to what extent is Kantian ethics effective or effective in moral decision making? Your first line needs to say Kantian ethics is not effective or it is effective, for example. And you should be referring to your LOA throughout your entire essay. You should see. So what I actually did was I did a criteria for myself where I tried to get my LOA in at the beginning, at the end, so repeating that sentence. But you do need to do more than repeating the sentence. The examiner should read your entire essay and be convinced that you are completely arguing either for or against, because otherwise you're not getting those evaluation marks. And everything you say should be kind of related. So unfortunately, yes, there is so much content. This subject is very content heavy, but you can't cram everything in there, and relevant information is very much necessary, and I think that anything that's not really relevant shouldn't be in there. Another random tip I have is to use connectives or like fancy words and phrases. I'm going to put some up here now, but I didn't add as many because I did actually forget some, because you have to remember so much. It is difficult to, but even if you get like 2 in there, you want to say evidently or like clearly. Those words, for example, just make your argument sound stronger. So the first technique is not exclusive to religious studies by any means. It's an app and it's called Flora, and essentially it locks your phone when you're studying. You press start, you start a timer, you add how long you want to study for, and then you can build up these hours that you do when you're studying and set like a daily target for yourself, and it will lock your phone so you will not receive notifications, you will not get distracted by your phone, and if you go on your phone it will say like, are you sure you want to kill your tree or whatever. So it's just like a virtual tree you can have, and I did in the end pay for Flora Plus because I used it. I've been using it since GCSEs and I've racked up like a crazy amount of hours or something, but I really recommend that if your phone distracts you, or just put your phone in another room. You don't have to pay for the app, but if you want to get if you want to plant real trees, you do have to pay. I'm going to talk about Quizlet first, because Quizlet was my main source of revision. When I was revising and my screen time would literally be like 6 hours on Quizlet on my laptop. It would be insane. So what Quizlet is most people think Quizlet is just flashcards, and it is, but I want to say but. Okay, so Quizlet Plus is in fact something you have to pay for. I think I paid like £20 or £30, and you unlock so many more features. I would say it's entirely worth it if you think you're going to be using it. So I know a lot of people have shifted from using paper flashcards, which I think is absolutely fine, and I really didn't get on well with paper flashcards either. Like, coming up to the exam, I didn't really feel like I was using my paper flashcards, so I think Quizlet is really good because you can kind of access it anywhere, even when you're out and about. Like, I would get the train home from school and I'd be doing like my flashcards and stuff. So the Quizlet Plus features are that you can literally have highlighting, and you can do like bold and italics on your flashcards, and I thought this really helped for me because it just helped me remember the keywords when it's such a content heavy subject. There's also an AI chat, which I did use quite frequently, and essentially it will just ask you questions and you can answer them. There are tests. It can test you on content, on memory, stuff you've remembered. And also I recommend using the sort feature tool, which means that you can sort your flashcards. So if you remember a flashcard, then you click the tick. If you don't, then you click the cross. It's pretty self-explanatory. Another thing I also used is the audio feature. So for remembering names or just one word things like quotes, for example, especially in the theology subsection of religious studies, I think that is really helpful. Hearing your own voice repeat over and over again the teachings or the quotes from scholars.
We cannot define something into existence, even if it has all the perfections we can imagine.
So for every section that you need to like remember, so you've got content, 40%, evaluation, 60%, scholars, they can be either content or evaluation depending on how you write it, quotes and teachings for DCT, and case studies for ethics, some of the applied ethics, such as euthanasia, business, sexual ethics, and business ethics. Those are the case studies you need to remember. So for each of those subsections, I made a new folder within a folder on Quizlet in a topic. So essentially what I've got is for every single topic on the OCR spec, when you click on the folder, I'm going to show it how now here, but when you click on the folder, it will say like canteen ethics, and then inside it will have the content, the scholars, everything you need to know. And so I've got the content from the white books, the white textbooks, and all the content is on there. For the evaluation, I've taken those from the coloured textbooks, from the blue boxes, which are extremely helpful. But I know a lot of people found by the end of the A-level that they weren't using the coloured textbooks as much as they expected, and they were only really using the blue boxes. So I would say that, I'm going to link my Quizlet folders down below. I'm not entirely sure what features you will get if you don't currently have Quizlet Plus, but I would highly recommend just even using a free trial. Also, if you find that paper flashcards work for you, that's great. So they're also called key cards. You can find them in W.H. Smith, Ryman, that kind of stationery place. You write the question on one side, you write the answer on another. You can get someone to test you, you can get your friends to test you. One thing I would say is that for religious studies, I found it quite difficult to get people to test me because it just was so boring to my family and friends, and they just wouldn't do it. Like, they would do it, but they wouldn't enjoy it. So on Quizlet, you can have an automated feature where a few seconds and then the flashcard will flip. The other AI feature, which is quite new to Quizlet, is that you can upload a PDF or document and it will essentially create flashcards for you. And I did use this as well because we did get quite a few handouts from class, which were like extra reading that we had to do, especially for case studies and ethics in particular. I find it quite useful to just have that condensed into flashcards. If you just have questions and terms, you can also use the match game, which is essentially where you just match two terms together. This doesn't require Quizlet Plus, and I did this, I remember, in secondary school for my GCSEs, so I do recommend that one too. Next, I'm going to move on to textbooks. Now, my school actually provided quite a lot of the textbooks, but I did have to buy quite a few as well. We started off with the coloured textbooks, and I think that these are the most popular, I want to say. So there's one for each topic: ethics, philosophy, then theology. At first, I was literally just writing out over and over again the content from each textbook onto a piece of paper, and that was the least effective revision technique ever. I don't really know what provoked me to do that, but I don't recommend just copying notes because you're not going to learn anything. So what I only really used from those textbooks in the end happened to be the blue boxes. I found them way too content heavy and actually made the switch to the white revision guides. A lot of people told me, like, that doesn't have enough information in and things. I have heard people say like they found that they were too condensed, the revision guides, and that they didn't have enough information in. But the way I thought about it was like, that is 40, if it's only 40% content, then really I don't need to know the kind of ins and out of the topic. Like, I just need to know the basics. And if you are aiming for B's and things, then I recommend those revision guides only. There is also two other textbooks. So there's the Oxford one, which is, there's two of them. One has like a poppies on the cover, one has some straw on the cover. I did use one of them one time. Those ones I find too condensed and also very heavy to carry into school. But other than that, I can't really speak for it. If your teacher recommends it, absolutely get them. They are quite expensive, but maybe it's worth it, I don't know. There is also the green one. Again, I found this one too content heavy. I did see quite a lot of people who had it though, so maybe, I think it's quite old, but I don't know. Then there are also workbooks. These are quite affordable. I got them from, I think, Waterstones, I think. They are quite affordable and they essentially just ask you questions. But I think that if you don't want to make that extra spend, that's absolutely fine. And I think that you can literally just make questions and topic revision tests for yourself. Last but not least, there is the model essays book. So there's two, and I recommend getting the second one because it's more updated. So this has just literally model essays. You can find exemplar essays online, but this one just has all the grades on there. It's quite easy, like you can filter it by grade. So if you're aiming for a B, if you're aiming for a C, you can look at where the C is and then read an example of a C grade essay. Next, I'm going to talk about this one revision source. So there's a YouTuber and she is a religious studies teacher, ex-ethics examiner, I believe. So The YouTube handle is I think therefore I teach. It's a reference to Descartes. And she makes videos where she essentially just goes through the PowerPoints that she has made over the content. Her videos are really helpful if you kind of need that extra bit of explaining, because the way she explains things makes it sound so much easier. I did notice that my teacher used her PowerPoints, so you can purchase her PowerPoints online, I believe, in like a package. And I think that her PowerPoints are very condensed, very good. They have all the information you need to know, and I do recommend taking notes from her PowerPoints. Some people are more like audio learners, so she also does podcasts. Well, she has podcasts for some of the topics, so I recommend that as well. And on her website you can also purchase revision material. So I purchased this like Word document which basically had like example essay questions, and it was literally like £2 or something. It has like example essay questions, and it gives you space to plan your essays and then write it out for every single topic. I highly recommend just even checking out her channel. She also has a TikTok page. I think I mentioned in a previous video that she did some live streams before religious studies essays, so that was very helpful. Another one for the people who learn from audios is the pansycast podcast. If you don't already know what it is, it's these students who get together and they have covered the entire specification, which is insane, and honestly kudos to them. It's run by students, and they basically just go through. So the way it's laid out is they go through all the content that they need to know. They'll have like a debate or something, and then they'll go through like an evaluation. So it's structured in a way where you get all of your assessment objectives in. Honestly, I felt like podcasts are really useful because you can just listen to them wherever you are. There is also a separate one for DCT, but I will link everything below. Next is Seneca. I feel like this is less well known, but Seneca is a free, I believe, or it comes with the school, I'm not sure, free platform for online learning, and it's usually for STEM subjects, but most schools do use it now. There are also some humanities subjects on there, so religious studies OCR is on there. And what it does is it will give you flashcards on the content, and then it will ask you to answer questions based on that. I don't pay for the Seneca Premium just because I didn't use it like a whole lot, but I did find it quite helpful because it does have condensed bullet point notes. Now for some revision, like actual techniques. Obviously I've mentioned flashcards, but one of the main things I did in the lead up to exams was blurting. Blurting is just a revision technique form where you essentially blurt, as in like you write down everything you remember from that topic, or you can type if you find that much quicker and easier for you. And you check the notes against your actual notes, and you see what you've missed out and what you need to keep revising in order to remember it for next time. So I like to do this on a whiteboard because you can just rub it away afterwards. And I found that blurting really helped me remember things, because each time I was thinking, okay, every time I'm blurting, I'm not remembering this one thing, so I would drill that into my brain. Also, mind maps are really useful. There is a digital platform, which I will link down below, that I use. But it also has pre-made ones made by, don't even have to create them yourself, because I know that can be a lengthy process. Making paper mind maps is also very good if you're going to keep citing back to them. There is also 2 websites I would recommend, in as well as the I think therefore I teach one. So one is literally called A-Level Religious Studies, and it is actually made by this current examiner and religious studies tutor, and it is extremely helpful. It does have tips and tricks. It also has practice questions at the bottom of each page, and it also has all the content and notes you need to know. Then there is one called like Lauren's A-Level Revision. I didn't use this one as much, I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's either this one or the other one that separates out from each grade's notes. So if you're just aiming for a C, then you can press C grade notes, or if you're aiming for a B, etc. Because obviously the more content you do know, the more higher your grade is going to be. But also, I mean, please don't go too content heavy. That's what I did in first year and it was awful. Next one is quite obvious. It's literally just practice questions and practice tests. So if you keep doing practice questions, which you can find online, in the model essays book, anywhere, you can make ones up yourself. You can make like a whole list of them and try and get through them. They are also on the A-Level website thing. And past papers, you can find them on the OCR website. Literally just set a timer and for 40 minutes and just do the paper, see how far you get, see what you can do. I only actually did this a few times where I would do the real exam, like outside of the exam, so I only did like a 2-hour thing a few times. I don't think it's necessary to do too many practice questions. It does become quite repetitive. I would say though, at least try and do a practice question for every single topic, just so you are extremely prepared. Which brings me on to my next point, which is practice tests. If you don't know the content, then you're kind of fucked, to be honest. So if you create a practice test for yourself, or just even make one for your friend, and then you guys can swap, and you literally just check your content. There are also practice tests in each of the end of the topics in the coloured textbooks, or in the workbooks that you can also purchase. Then I also did this like near the end of my exams, which is LOA sheets. So line of argument sheets, essentially just you write out the question, then you write introduction, and then you write your line of argument. So I agree with this, or I disagree with this, whatever. Not in exact wording, I just said, but you know. And then paragraph 1, you're going to say everything you're going to write. You're going to include your scholars, your teachings, your content that you're going to include. Then you're going to do paragraph 2, paragraph 3, then conclusion. So if you like to have a structured kind of method, that's the way I would go. And if you like it to be given to you, that's where I would go. But you will probably find yourself experimenting with lots of different styles. I have had times when I've done 4 paragraphs in the past. I've heard that some people do like 6, and they do really small paragraphs of 6 paragraphs. That's absolutely fine. There is no kind of penalising for how many paragraphs you do. It's just entirely subjective. Something else I also forgot to mention is always include an introduction and a paragraph. This just kind of sets the tone for your essay, and even if you're like completely running out of time, rather than doing like your last sentence in the last or third paragraph, always include a conclusion, even if it's 2 sentences. Always. And in the introduction, honestly, just don't reveal too much, don't give too much information, too much content. Just say a line of argument, say what you're going to argue, say why. You can even like speak in first person. I've had people do that before. Say, in this essay, I will be like arguing for canteen ethics, etc. You will kind of work out your style as you go on. But I mean, personally, I found it quite difficult in first year because obviously you don't know the whole full course content. In the conclusion, just kind of reiterate, something I would say for the conclusion is never bring anything new into your conclusion. So everything that is in your conclusion should be a summary or like a roundup of what you've put in your entire essay. It shouldn't be like something that you haven't mentioned previously. If you remember something at the end, like literally just go back and put like an asterisk in, and then do like an asterisk on the side of the page. Don't mention anything and try and shove it in the conclusion, because it will just look like forced. For the LOA sheets, I recommend using the specification boxes, which not a lot of people know about, but if you match what you're learning to the specification boxes, then you can never go wrong. The specification is at the front of every single page of the textbook on each topic, and it should also be on the OCR spec online if you just search up OCR specification. So this will have like all the bullet points you need to know for each topic, and then at the bottom it will say what you can be like assessed on or something, and it will have like assess Plato's cave, whatever, assess Aristotle's world of forms, something like that. And then from those you can create questions, or very generic broad questions if you're like under time pressure. Then you can write a line of argument. So not so that you're planning what you're going to write in the exam, but just so that you would hypothetically be able to write a question for every single topic in every scenario. And it is also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, important to do counter arguments, even if it is only like 3 sentences. You know, when they say evaluate, they don't mean like attack and criticize. You can still say like, actually, you know what, I think William James has a point. We can't just say that all psychological explanations rule out religious experience completely. Then also a very less well-known thing is the OCR exam reports. Every single year The exam reports come out, I don't even know when. I think they come out at the same time as the grade boundaries, so they're probably out now for this year. The examiner will write like an actual report saying like, this is what we saw a lot of this year, this is what we didn't see a lot of this year, this is how it's changed last year. So for example, I read one from a few years back. It was like about Plato's cave analogy, and it was just saying like it was too descriptive, too much content, too AO1 heavy, and that's what most students did. And it really does help to know the like common mistakes that people make when they're revising. I think that a lot of people overlook the OCR website, but it does have some pretty good stuff on there as well. Like there is like a actual like webpage on how to get top grades on there, and there is also one on like arguments against the cosmological argument, and they're like bullet pointed because it can be confusing when you get mixed up and stuff. Another thing I want to say is please keep organised during this A-level. There is so much content, so many topics, and they all need to be separated into 3. So I recommend ring binder for each and kind of having individual sections for each and something to separate them. Then also have a folder that you can carry to school and then transfer your notes in, because you don't want to be carrying everything to school every day. A lot of people in my class did switch digitally in the end, and I think that is the way most people are going to go in the next few years. But for humanities, I think it's mainly like paper and things. But that also does actually bring on nicely to my next point, which is this is a highly synoptic A-level, which basically means that there is so much overlap across the whole of the specification. So you do not have to bring in synoptic links, and you do not have to bring in scholars. If you want those top marks, I recommend it. So synoptic links is essentially where you'll reference either directly or indirectly something in another topic. There are so many synoptic links. Until you finish the entire content of the A-level, it's like difficult to see the synoptic links. But I mean, when you finished, you're like, oh wait, that's like related to this and that's like related to this. You're not going to lose marks if it's relevant. Do not think, oh, I haven't got a synoptic link in, I'm going to try and quickly add one now. No, it's just going to look so misplaced and it's going to look really strange. So don't do that. If there is something that sparks your mind and you're thinking, oh, wait a second, we learned about something about this and the other topic that would back up my argument, as long as it backs up your argument and aligns with your LOA, then put it in there. There is a kind of strive for people who want to do like essays and things immediately. I would say don't rush into practice essays, absolutely not, unless you're like really up to grips with the content. Do test yourself though. I think frequently testing yourself on the content means that you're more likely to kind of be able to sit and do a essay. You know, open book essays are very helpful. That's how most people do start, and I think that is completely fair enough. I think that open book essays can be really helpful just for helping even to remember the content. I'll like refer back to something and I'll think, oh, we did that in that open book essay, I'll put that in there. For the scholars, they usually aren't mentioned in the textbooks. I did try and do a scholar per essay though, and I think I managed at that. But even if you're talking about like Plato, Aristotle, that's a scholar. Obviously for other topics it's different. Even if it's just like you're bringing in Dawkins and what he said and you're saying like this is clearly correct or whatever. I got cut off, but basically what I was saying was that you don't have to have a scholar in every single essay by any means. It does strengthen your argument though. So I did try and have a couple of scholars, a couple of quotes per topic. I think for the theology subsection, you 100% do need teachings. I don't think that's really negotiable. If you are aiming for top grades, I would highly recommend just remembering some scholars, what they thought, and that's where kind of quizzing yourself can come in handy. You will also notice that the scholars are very synoptic. You will notice them popping up in lots of different ones, such as like Hume or Dawkins or J.S. Mill, for example. But don't try and like force yourself to kind of get them in the essay if they're not relevant. If they're relevant to the topic but not the question that you've been given, then don't try and put them in. If they're relevant to the question, then do put them in. Yeah. Another honourable mention that I completely forgot to say was the
website, the Student Room, which I did use. I didn't use it much throughout my A-level, but then like a few weeks before my exam, I started using it more and more as my exams approached. There was this forum called just Religious Studies A-level OCR, and then the year I was taking my exam in, and to be honest, like a lot of people, it wasn't that active until like a few days before each exam. It was quite quiet, but it was really, really helpful, and there would be like people in there helping each other, and even if someone's asking questions, answering those questions really, really helped me to kind of remember the content and test myself. I think that's all I have to say, and thank you for watching. If you guys have any more questions, any more even resources or tips that you'd like to share in the comments below, feel free to. I'll be extremely open to answering as many questions as you'd like. And anyone who's taking their 2025 Religious Studies exam, I wish you very good luck.